doesn't love a good kart racing game? Kart racers, or go-kart racers, is a subgenre of racing game that mixes traditional racing and cartoon-style vehicular combat. These games are usually easy to pick up. With most kart racers having multiplayer as well, there are also games that bring good times with families and friends. Or they can actually destroy them.
No!
There you go.
Let's go!
Before being a subgenre of video games, the idea of racing mixed with vehicular combat dated all the way back to the late 1960s. On September of 1968, Hanna-Barbera Productions released their latest Saturday morning cartoon called Wacky Races. The show features 11 outlandish race cars competing throughout various roads. Every racer will attempt to win by any means necessary, which include the use of their respective gadgets, weapons, and any other form of crazy gimmicks. Kart racing games had their inception in the late 1980s. According to the Guinness World Records, considerably, the very first kart racing game was Power Drift, developed by Sega AM2 for the arcades in 1988. This game was considered technologically advanced at the time, simulating real-time 3D driving with 2D images. The mastermind behind this game was none other than the legendary Suzuki-yu, who is also famous for pioneering polygonal 3D in video games. Now, Power Drift has a similar concept to Wacky Races. It features outlandish cartoon-like characters in cars racing in various forms of racetracks. What's missing, however, is the element of vehicular combat. These characters just race normally without actually using any silly gimmicks on each other. Despite Power Drift considerably being the first game of the subgenre, it was not until 4 years later that kart racers would be popularized. On 1st September 1992, Nintendo released their kart racing game called Super Mario Kart for the SNES. This game is essentially Nintendo's version of Wacky Races, featuring characters from the Super Mario series. It is highly regarded to be the first kart racing game with vehicular combat. This game would later become a series of its own, spanning up to 15 games on different platforms. The game also laid the foundation towards modern 3D kart racing games. The Super Mario series has reached a milestone of 40 years, an impressive accomplishment to one of gaming's greatest icons. In this video, we are going to take a look back at the game that started the racing spin-off of the Super Mario series. Being the first in the Mario Kart series, does Super Mario Kart still hold up today? Fasten your seatbelts and grip that steering wheel as we are going to take a 34-year drive to the world of Super Mario Kart. When the SNES first launched back in the summer of 1991, one of its launch titles was F-Zero. The game is a futuristic Formula 1 style racing, where 4 racers compete in a deadly, high-speed racing tournament. F-Zero became a commercial success, selling 2.85 million copies worldwide. For a racing game, one major aspect that was missing from F-Zero is a 2-player mode. The success of F-Zero would let Nintendo EAD, the development division of Nintendo, to create a 2-player racing game, but with Super Mario characters. Hence, Super Mario Kart was originally a prototype 2-player F-Zero game. This was confirmed by the producer of F-Zero and the man behind Super Mario himself, Miyamoto Shigeru. On an article from a UK magazine, Retro Gamer, 20th April 2017 issue, Miyamoto stated the following: "Our original plan for Mario Kart didn't include Mario or karts. The game's roots lie in one of the launch titles for the SNES, F-Zero. The game was designed for single-player gameplay because of our focus on getting across the sense of speed and the size of the courses. It was a prototype for a multiplayer version of F-Zero that ended being the starting point of Super Mario Kart." The development of Super Mario Kart began somewhere in 1990, right after the release of F-Zero in Japan for the Super Famicom. Miyamoto Shigeru assigned 2 men as directors for the project. The first man was Kono Hideki, who previously worked as the level designer for Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Bros. 3, and Super Mario World. The second man was Sugiyama Tadashi, who previously worked as the director for Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and Pilot Wings. Nintendo EAD's goal with the project was to create a racing game capable of displaying 2 players on the same screen simultaneously. Both Kono and Sugiyama were assigned because their individual expertise matched on what the team wanted for Super Mario Kart. Kono's experience in level design was suitable on creating racetracks. Sugiyama's previous work as a director in Pilot Wings meant that he understood how to simulate a 3D style game with 2D images. To realize the game from a technical standpoint, the lead programmer of F-Zero, Kimura Masato, was brought into this project. Kimura was able to program a 3D style racing with 2D images for the SNES. Considering Super Mario Kart was originally a 2-player F-Zero prototype, the game used the same graphics mode as F-Zero called Mode 7. This graphics mode was specifically designed for the SNES, which allows a background layer to be rotated and scaled on a scaline by scaline basis to create many different depth effects. Yes, I'm using the Wikipedia description directly, by the way. Mode 7 was also the primary selling point for the SNES, according to the Super NES Nintendo Player's Guide. Having a 2-player racing game built from F-Zero also meant that some technical sacrifices needed to be made. F-Zero has larger sprites, larger racetracks, and a faster racing pace. These were not possible for Super Mario Kart, given the technical limitation of the SNES. Therefore, the game needed smaller sprites, more compact racetracks, and a slower racing pace. It's worth mentioning that because they wanted to have a simultaneous 2-player racing game, the game would run on split screen even during single player. According to Kono Hideki on an IGN article, and I quote, "It was necessary, the split-screen game design, to make the maps and courses more compact for a game like that." Hence, in single-player mode, the top screen is used for the actual race, while the bottom screen is used for the map overlay. Now, for those of you who played a lot of racing games on the SNES, you might be thinking that the SNES should be powerful enough to have a full-screen single-player mode and split-screen 2-player mode in the same game. Games like Top Gear 3000 and Street Racer are proof of that. Yes, it is true that these games were able to do more with the SNES limitation. However, these games came out a couple of years after Super Mario Kart, which means that some developers were able to figure out how to push the SNES to its limits. There is an interesting story behind Nintendo EAD's decision to use karts instead of cars. On an interview posted on shumaplations.com, the decision behind using karts, according to Miyamoto, was to create a fun and lighthearted game that leaves everyone with a big smile on their faces. The big goal was for a game where both players and onlookers would be laughing and smiling, even though in the end it became a series that ruins families and friendships.
It's over! After so many... No! It's bullshit!
That was just insane.
Ho, people are laughing and smiling, alright, at the expense of others suffering, of course. You got that right, Miyamoto-san. On the same interview, Kono pointed out that there was a boom in go-kart racing at the time. He even went as far as conducting field research on go-kart racing with his development team. As you can see in this picture, this is the Super Mario Kart team on an actual go-kart raceway at Nemunosato Resort in Mie Prefecture. Quite the fun working environment, if you ask me. Using karts was also helpful to apply wacky cartoonish animation for the characters. This was especially with the game having vehicular combat elements similar to that of Wacky Races. For the game's music, the composer was Okasoyo. Now, Okasoyo had a somewhat short career in the company compared to other well-known Nintendo figures. She joined Nintendo in 1987 and was under the supervision of Kondo Koji, the legendary composer of Super Mario Bros. She worked for the soundtracks of notable NES and SNES games including Ice Hockey, Pilot Wings, and Super Mario All-Stars. On September of 1995, she decided to leave Nintendo and became a freelance composer for various projects. A little fun fact about Oka: one of her favorite music she has written for Nintendo is the Rainbow Road theme for Super Mario Kart. Now that I have talked about everything there is with the development history, let's discuss the core gameplay aspect of Super Mario Kart in this next chapter. Super Mario Kart's primary mode is called Mario Kart GP. When you select this mode, you are given two choices of engine class, 50cc and 100cc. A higher class means higher speed in race, which also means an increased level of difficulty. Consider 50cc as an easy mode while 100cc as a normal mode. After selecting the difficulty for Mario Kart GP, you now select the character you're going to play. The game has a roster of 8 notable characters from the Super Mario series: Mario, Peach, Bowser, Koopa Troopa, Luigi, Yoshi, Donkey Kong Jr., and Toad. Despite not having visible stats on screen, each character does have their advantages and disadvantages. Character types are actually shown in the Super Mario Kart instruction booklet. The Mario brothers, Mario and Luigi, are the standard performers, meaning they have the average top speed, acceleration, and handling. Peach and Yoshi are the fast acceleration racers, best acceleration, but slightly poor handling. Bowser and Donkey Kong Jr. are the heavy top speed racers, best top speed, but very poor handling. Koopa Troopa and Toad are the light control racers, best handling, but poor top speed. You now select one of 3 different championship races: Mushroom Cup, Flower Cup, and Star Cup. On 100cc, there is a 4th and final championship race called Special Cup. However, you need to complete all 3 cups before unlocking the Special Cup. Each championship or cup races consist of 5 different tracks. Thus, there is a total number of 20 tracks in the game. I need to mention that despite the game having 20 tracks, most of them are reused tracks with different layouts. So, if we count the number of unique tracks, there are only 8 of them. Now let's talk about the race itself. At the start of the championship race, you will be placed at the 8th position. Each race has 5 laps that you need to finish. The goal is really simple: finish the race at first place. You can obtain randomized items during a race by hitting the question block panels. These items are at your disposal to win the race. For those of you who are familiar with Mario Kart or kart racers in general, I don't need to explain too much on this. This should be self-explanatory, considering it is a standard mechanic for the genre. There is one major difference that made Super Mario Kart somewhat more difficult than future games of the same genre. The question block panels do not recover, meaning they deactivate permanently once you have hit them throughout the entire race. So you really need to make sure to hit the active panels to get an item. Speaking of difficulty, I consider Super Mario Kart to be one of the more challenging games in the series. May or may not be for the right reasons. This is personally the case, especially since I rarely come back to this game after playing a lot more hours into modern Mario Kart games such as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Therefore, I'm lacking the muscle memory with Super Mario Kart. The basic controls of this game would become the standard for the Mario Kart series. On the SNES controller, the B button is to accelerate, the Y button is to brake, the A button is to use an item, and the R button is to jump and drift during hold. Once again, if you are familiar with the series, this should be a no-brainer. Although, despite having similar controls, driving in Super Mario Kart is rather difficult. To make the game more challenging, the CPU racers can somehow cheat by drop items at random without actually obtaining any in the question block panels. They seriously have an infinite store of items at their disposal. Some items are not even playable. They're just droppers for specific CPU racers, such as the Yoshi Egg, the Fireball, and the Poison Mushroom. Another aspect of cheating CPU is something that I've noticed recently. At some point, CPU racers can cheese their way through obstacles such as pipes and thwomps. This was also confirmed to be a thing according to TV tropes. Jeez, Miyamoto-san, with all the cheating CPU racers you programmed, I thought you said you wanted to make a fun and lighthearted game. This is more like madness than lighthearted, just like what the US commercial said.
Mario Kart Funny Car Madness! Only on Super NES!
There is one major element that was taken from F-Zero, which is the life system. In every championship race, you are given 3 lives. You need to finish a race at least in the top 4 position. If you fail to do so, then you lose 1 life and you have to restart the race on that track. You can also restart a race from the pause menu, but doing so will also consume 1 life. At the end of every race, the top 4 players receive points based on their rankings. The first place is given 9 points, the second place is given 6 points, the third place is given 3 points, and the fourth place is given 1 point. To win the Golden Cup, you need to accumulate the most points at the end of a championship race. This would become the standard rule for future Mario GPs to come. Despite the CPU racers being absolute cheating bastards, the game is still manageable to win in my opinion. players can still outwit opponents rather fairly. It also takes some good muscle memory to be developed in order for players to be good at it. If you want an even harder challenge in Super Mario Kart, the game has a third and secret engine class for expert players. Once you have completed all cups in 100cc, a message pops up during the podium celebration that says, "Excellent driving, you are now a Super Mario Kart expert. You now unlock 150cc. Now, driving in this mode, to that I say,
Good luck.
I do want to mention a gripe I have with the engine class. Despite playing on higher engine classes, I don't feel the game to be as fast as it wants to be. Although, in higher engine classes, I do feel the driving is more difficult. Perhaps it was due to the game's limitation on the SNES, or perhaps it's because I'm so used to the modern Mario Kart games that are actually faster. I just feel that this game is rather slow overall. Hey, even Sega blatantly threw shade at how slow Super Mario Kart feels in their Sega Genesis blast processing commercial back in the 90s.
What if you don't have blast processing?
Overall, the gameplay is pretty standard with a lot of room for improvements. The game can still be fun to play and look back into. However, it may take some time to get used to, especially if you have played better games in the genre that came after. Still, we can never take away the importance and the impact that the original game has given. There are 3 other game modes besides Mario Kart GP, 1 additional mode for single player, and 2 additional modes for 2 players. The additional single player mode is Time Trial. In this mode, you are not racing against any opponents, you are only racing to beat the fastest time. You cannot use any items in this mode as well, since there are no opponents. In 2-player mode, there is a match race, which is the versus mode of the game. Here, you don't have any CP racers joining the race. It's just plain one-on-one race between 2 players. You also get to select a single racetrack in this mode instead of going through all the race cups like in Mario Kart GP. The other mode for 2 players is Battle Mode. This mode is purely about vehicular combat. Each player is given 3 balloons, and the goal is to eliminate all the balloons from your opponent. In short, whoever destroys the opponent 3 times using items wins the match. Oh, and I do love how the US commercial describes Battle Mode. This is a mode if you want to ruin someone's day.
Or go into battle mode and ruin his day.
Time Trial, Match Race, and Battle Mode would later become the standard for Mario Kart games to come. Not only that, but these 3 would also become compulsory for other kart racers such as Diddy Kong Racing and Crash Team Racing. Super Mario Kart is a highly influential game that not only started a racing game series for Nintendo, but also popularized the entire kart racing subgenre. The game was considered very revolutionary at the time. Not only did it simulate 3D style driving with 2D visuals, but it also enables simultaneous 2-player racing for a home console. That is technically impressive given the SNES was only a year old when the game came out. Despite the technical prowess, the game has what I like to call first game syndrome. The driving aspect of Super Mario Kart is rather clunky and also rather slow to a degree. It's a game that I come back sometimes only for a short nostalgia moment, though I still recommend people to try this game out, just for the short experience alone. Regardless, Super Mario Kart was able to receive critical and commercial success. In its home country of Japan, the game quickly sold 3.82 million copies in 1992. The game would later become the 4th best-selling game of all time for the SNES, up to 8.76 million copies worldwide. This success would eventually prompt more Mario Kart games for different Nintendo systems in the future. So that's it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. A look back to the very first kart racing game with vehicular battle mechanics, Super Mario Kart. What are your thoughts on Super Mario Kart? Do you like this game? Do you still find this game to be good after more than 30 years? Let me know in the comment section below. With that being said, this is me, Profar. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give me a thumbs down. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, join the Profar Mokori Hunter X Discord server, and I'll see you guys in the next video.